The idea of going back to Westeros was almost too much of a challenge.
We're going back 200 years earlier to a time when dragons were plenty and the Iron Throne far more extravagant? Yes, we are looking at the coolest set pieces from House of the Dragon. Number 1. In retrospect, the throne room was looking a bit barren. So the throne is looking a bit different these days. The reason is that the one in the original series didn't truly honor the vision George R.R. Martin had for it. So, the House of the Dragon is going back to the original art for the throne. All we have to wonder about is, do you think those swords are sharp? Given they had to be transported with pool noodles, we think so. The added swords that cascade the stairs were partially added to create distance between the throne and everyone else, but also to respect the 15-foot chair of swords in the books that just wasn't practical.
What if there was a whole story to tell about the kind of devolution of the throne?
The throne was always meant to be so huge it stopped sunlight from coming in the window. Number 2. They should put the dragon head up for auction. It would look nice in the living room. One cool dragon head prop was definitely not CGI. Something about it outside of the context of the show just makes it seem massive. Do you think the Targaryens paint dragon eggs for Easter? Chicken eggs just aren't half as challenging. Number 3. Hey pal, you got a sword I can borrow? A whole army's worth would be ideal. Imagine making that call to other rival studios that you need every single sword they can possibly scrounge together. That's just what House of the Dragon had to do to design the new/old Iron Throne in the image of the initial art and descriptions. They needed 2,500 swords in total. The extra swords may be recognizable from The Witcher and the live-action World of Warcraft movie, simply titled Warcraft. Maybe this has created room for a crossover, or at the very least inspired some fan art. Number 4. And now for the castle that houses the throne. The Red Keep is different from the original series. Not by much, but the way it was redesigned was to interconnect all of the rooms as if they were actually building a castle.
It's all built in, it's not on separate stages, which was really fun to play with.
This way, they can film long tracking shots.
You don't have to build the whole castle.
A staircase was added as a symbol of power and gives a sense of parliament while also being just the home of the family. New spaces were built in, and the composite allows lots of spaces for characters to just observe what's going on.
To add to the intrigue and the conspiracy.
Honestly, people were pushing so hard against the idea of having the rooms attached, you have to wonder what their problem is. Number 5. There's like over 20 dragons in this series. Go big or go home. The visual effects supervisor, Angus Bickerton, when he'd read about the tournament, thought it was going to be in a field with some trees around it. Boy, was he ever wrong.
The tournament is essentially playing at war.
They needed their opening to be big and pay homage to those great battle scenes Game of Thrones was known for. A design was done up for the Colosseum.
And I said, "Really, Jim? Have you got the money to build that?" And he goes, "Yeah."
Number 6. On to the city that harbors the castle that houses the throne. We're making up a nursery rhyme here. Cáceres in Spain was previously used in Game of Thrones for the Lannister stronghold. King's Landing in Season 7. It's officially back for House of the Dragon. For the exterior shots, do you think it would have looked the same 200 years earlier? Number 7. Animals are a whole other beast when it comes to filmmaking. One thing that made working in the Colosseum slightly trickier was the horses. When you've got animals involved, you need to take extra precaution to make sure they don't hurt themselves. So they had to be certain they had soft ground for the horses, hence the mulch. That's just one of the many things we're sure they had to do a lot of prep for. Like, where do the horses sleep? Where do they hang out when they're not on set? Do they get their own green room? Is it literally a green pasture? They probably have their own trailer, right? Number 8. Sometimes you've got to make your own creative choices. Continuity is second to beautiful sets. And the statues in the throne room, they didn't exist in the original series, but were in the books. And the creative team debated whether they were changing too much. Ultimately, they decided, a lot can happen in 200 years. And the best explanation they've got is the statues were stolen during the attack on King's Landing. What do you think, though? Is continuity more important than design? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Number 9. Fantasy is going digital. An LED video stage was built at the Warner Bros. Leavesden Studios in Watford, England, so that they could have their stunning backdrops in real time. This game-changing technology is popping up more and more, leaving the dreadful green and blue screens in the past, at least when it comes to big-budget productions. Number 10. Do you think it's common to alert the fire department to filming? Driftmark was filmed on location on the island of St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall. The Cornwall Fire Department had to put out a public announcement that the set would be creating controlled plumes of smoke so that no one in the vicinity freaked out. They collected tons of driftwood and scattered it along the beach, and then set up shipwrecks with it. Sweeping exterior shots were taken at Hollywell Bay Beach in Cornwall. They're shipping the actors around in boats to set. The place couldn't have been very accessible by land. You'd think they'd be nervous that the actors would get their costumes wet in those boats, but nope. Number 11. Imagine paying this much attention to your extras all the time. Due to COVID restrictions, they were only allowed 150 extras, and they needed thousands to fill the Colosseum. Populating it required a ton of work, because they really didn't want to rely on CGI.
We film the sprites from all sorts of different angles.
They ensure they film them doing all sorts of different actions: cheering, shouting, sitting, standing, sleeping, okay, maybe not sleeping.
Yes, come on! That's the way to do it.
Jousting is far too interesting to fall asleep watching. Besides, for the common folk, we bet it's the only entertainment they get all year. Number 12. Welcome to the wonderful world of green. Well, there's that pesky green screen all over the place. Perhaps we aren't finished with it yet. We're starting to think the LEDs are favorable when your backgrounds move and maybe less necessary when they don't. Either way, the final product, or should we say the initial product, is gorgeous. Number 13. Filming hasn't changed all that much since the days of Harry Potter. Here is how they set up the dragon flight simulation. They had a half-baked CGI render of the dragon only seen through the camera lens, because apparently their LED panels aren't good enough to forego green screen here either. And Millie Alcock was propped up on a giant saddle rig. At least Harry Potter had the audacity to actually build their dragons, though. Come on, House of Dragon, we want real dragons! Number 14. It wouldn't be a Game of Thrones prequel without a giant battle. It's fun to get a glimpse at everything that goes into crafting a battle scene, from the long track shots to the giant fan that we swore was a giant hamster wheel for a second. Number 15. 200 years earlier, the trees were much happier. Another Weirwood tree has made an appearance, or at least half of it has, but this one is looking a little less depressed than the one we saw in GOT. House of the Dragon is bigger, sharper, and full of more dragons. It's shaping up to be a fantastic series. What could go wrong? Are you excited about the new changes they've made, or do you miss the understated Iron Throne? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.